There are many kinds of dangerous people in this world. Some threaten you with swords, some with wealth, and some with loud ambition. But Machiavelli whispered of another kind, one you should fear most. They do not shout, they do not fight openly, and they rarely reveal what they truly want. They smile, they listen, they wait, and by the time you realize what they are, you have already given them power. This is the personality type Machiavelli knew could undo kings and ruin empires. Machiavelli understood that the true predator rarely shows its fangs. Instead, it arrives with a pleasant smile, a generous gesture, a soft voice that puts others at ease. In the courts of princes, such figures were welcomed, celebrated even, for their wit and charm seemed harmless. Yet beneath that surface lay calculations sharper than steel. The dangerous ones are not those who show aggression openly, for aggression can be measured, defended against, even predicted. The truly dangerous ones disarm you with kindness and then drain you with precision. They study how you react to flattery, how you respond to attention, and how quickly you let down your guard. In this way, charm becomes a weapon far deadlier than anger. A man who shouts reveals his weakness. A woman who charms reveals nothing. What begins as warmth slowly turns cold. For once you have given trust, you have surrendered the first line of defense. Machiavelli warned that rulers who trusted too easily found themselves surrounded by smiling faces that hid daggers. And even in our age, the lesson remains. The personality that cloaks calculation in charm can walk into any room, win the loyalty of strangers, and dismantle resistance without ever raising a hand. Their power is invisible, and because it is invisible, it is almost impossible to stop. They are never the loudest in the room. They do not seek the spotlight, nor do they compete for the center of attention. Instead, they linger at the edges, watching, listening, letting others reveal themselves. This is the mask of harmlessness. Machiavelli noted that the most feared advisors were those who seemed incapable of harm, for they were dismissed as weak, overlooked as insignificant, and spared the suspicion that follows bold ambition. In this disguise, the dangerous personality builds its fortress. When others underestimate you, they hand you freedom. They speak freely around you. They confide secrets. They reveal vulnerabilities without restraint. Every careless word they drop becomes a weapon in your hidden arsenal. And because you appear unthreatening, no one bothers to defend against you. Kings and generals learned this too late, when the quiet figure they had ignored emerged as the true architect of their ruin. This personality type understands that power is not seized with noise but collected in silence. They allow stronger men to destroy themselves with pride, while they gather influence like a spider weaving a web. When rivals look upon them, they see nothing more than threadbare silk, fragile and unworthy of notice. Yet when the moment arrives, that web closes around them, and the illusion of weakness is revealed as the deadliest snare. There is a cruelty in this disguise, for it exploits the arrogance of others. People believe danger must wear armor or carry a blade, and so they never guard against the one who seems too small, too quiet, too insignificant to matter. By the time the truth is clear, dependence has already formed. The harmless figure has become indispensable, the confidant you cannot live without, the voice you always turn to because it never seemed to challenge your authority. But this is the trick Machiavelli feared most, the enemy who is not an enemy until it is far too late. Their mask of harmlessness ensures that when betrayal comes, it feels like a ghost moving through the court, untraceable, impossible to punish because no one ever suspected. To rule, Machiavelli wrote, you must never mistake gentleness for loyalty, nor silence for obedience. Those who wear this mask are playing a longer game than you can see, and the day you forget that truth is the day you fall into their hands. The most dangerous personality never wastes words. They speak less than others, yet they hear more. Machiavelli recognized that silence, when mastered, becomes a blade sharper than any sword. Where others rush to fill the air with chatter, to prove their intelligence, to broadcast their ambitions, this type simply listens. Every pause they leave unsettles those around them, as people rush to fill the quiet with their own secrets. In this way, silence is not emptiness but a trap, and the one who commands it becomes a collector of power disguised as mere observation. Each secret given away becomes another coin stored in their treasury, to be spent at the exact moment it yields the greatest return. They learn what you fear, what you love, where you are weak, and where you crave recognition. They gather these truths not by asking, but by allowing your own restless tongue to betray you. This kind of personality is patient, and patience is their greatest weapon. They will let weeks, months, even years pass before using what they know, because they understand that timing is everything. To strike too soon is to waste the value of the secret. To strike at the right moment is to make kings kneel and armies collapse. Machiavelli wrote that rulers should beware of the silent man at court, for though he seems loyal, his loyalty is only to the knowledge he possesses. And knowledge is a throne that cannot be overthrown. What makes this type terrifying is that you never truly know what they have gathered. A glance, a word, a half-finished sentence, they hoard it all. They require no spies, for every careless confession you hand them becomes intelligence. You may believe you are safe because you have shared little, yet even what you withhold reveals something. Your restraint, your limits, the edges of what you fear to expose. They see patterns others miss, and they weave those patterns into maps of control. By the time you realize they know too much, it is too late, for silence has already bound you. They can break you without lifting a hand, only by choosing which truth to release and which to conceal. That is why Machiavelli warned that silence was more dangerous than any loud enemy. A loud enemy shows his weapon. A silent one leaves you wondering where the blow will land. To live unaware in their presence is to walk across a battlefield blindfolded, never knowing the arrow that has already been aimed at your heart. And still they smile, still they say little, still they let you believe they are harmless. But behind that silence lies the most dangerous arsenal of all the collection of your own words, stored and sharpened against you. The rarest kind of predator is not the one that pounces with speed, but the one that waits. Machiavelli warned that patience is not passive, it is a weapon sharpened by time. The personality type you should fear most does not rush, for rushing reveals desperation. Instead, they study the ground, mark the habits of their prey, and hold their strike until the precise moment when resistance is weakest. To others, this delay looks like weakness, like hesitation, like the inability to act. Yet in truth it is calculation so precise that the victim never stands a chance. They let others exhaust themselves with noise and movement, knowing that the proud often collapse under the weight of their own urgency. They let rivals waste resources, squander alliances, and burn through energy, while they themselves sit in silence, conserving strength. Then, when the rival is weary and exposed, they move with a speed that feels unstoppable, not because they are fast, but because they are exact. This waiting is not born of laziness or fear, it is discipline. The dangerous personality knows that power is not about being first, but but about being last. The last to move, the last to strike, the last to stand when the dust clears. They understand that time itself is a form of pressure, that patience erodes confidence, that the longer they wait, the more mistakes others make. Machiavelli observed that wars were not always won by the strongest army, but by the army that could endure hunger, endure silence, endure the passage of days without flinching. So too with the patient predator. Their stillness becomes unbearable to those who cannot tolerate uncertainty. Opponents lash out too soon, reveal too much, break formation in an effort to force a reaction. Yet the reaction never comes not until it is too late. This is the cruelty of waiting. The victim destroys themselves in anticipation of an attack that has not yet been delivered. And when the blow finally lands, it lands with the weight of inevitability. The patient personality type does not fight many battles. They fight few, and they win them all, because they allow others to fight against shadows until they are already broken. To stand against such a person is to live in constant unease, never sure if they have forgotten you, or if they are watching you so closely that every step you take only leads you deeper into their snare. Machiavelli feared this kind not because they moved often, but because they moved rarely, and each movement altered the fate of kingdoms. To wait is to own time, and the one who owns time already owns you. The most dangerous personality type understands that the greatest power is not in what you do with your own hands, but in what you can make others do for you. Machiavelli warned that the cleverest rulers never appeared cruel, never appeared ruthless, never even appeared ambitious, because their actions were carried out through loyal followers, manipulated allies, or even unsuspecting enemies. To move directly is to invite resistance. To move indirectly is to appear innocent. This type of personality thrives in the shadows of delegation, commanding without seeming to command. They whisper an idea into one ear, plant a seed in another, and then step back as events unfold exactly as they intended. In courts and kingdoms, this figure was often underestimated because they seemed inactive, as though they lacked the will to fight for themselves. But what their rivals never understood is that a hand, unbloodied, is the most powerful of all. When others act on your behalf, they carry the stain of blame while you remain untouchable. This manipulation is not loud or obvious. It is subtle, often dressed as advice or concern. They let others believe the choice was theirs, that the anger, the betrayal, the cruelty was born of their own conviction. Yet behind every action lies the invisible architect, guiding the board while never stepping onto it. This is why Machiavelli argued that rulers should never reveal their full intentions. A ruler who wields his own sword becomes feared, but also becomes a target. A ruler who lets others wield it on his behalf remains secure, for no one suspects the smiling figure who only offered counsel. The danger of this personality is that they transform everyone around them into instruments. Friends, lovers, allies, even rivals, all become extensions of their will, unaware they are being used until the damage is done. It is a cruelty masked as strategy, for they strip others of autonomy without ever appearing to take it. And should the plot collapse, they can retreat into the safety of denial, for they never acted, they only suggested, they only listened. Yet when the plan succeeds, all roads lead back to them, the silent master who never seemed to move yet orchestrated everything. This type of power is the hardest to defend against, because how do you strike at someone who has never lifted a hand? How do you punish someone who never spoke a command, but only left you to carry out what you thought was your own desire? Machiavelli knew that rulers fell not to their boldest enemies, but to those who controlled the boldest enemies from behind the curtain. That is the art of the dangerous personality, to stand still while the world moves at their command, and to destroy without ever appearing to touch. The instinct of ordinary people is to defend themselves, to explain their motives, to justify their actions when questioned. But Machiavelli warned that this very impulse is a weakness, for every explanation is a confession, every justification a surrender of power. The personality type you should fear most never explains. They allow rumors to spread, accusations to circle, enemies to speculate, while they remain unmoved. This silence is not passivity but a weapon. When you refuse to explain, you deny your rivals the satisfaction of certainty. They cannot pin you down, cannot predict you, cannot know whether their suspicions are correct, and so their doubt eats them alive. An explanation invites debate, but silence leaves nothing to grasp. The dangerous personality knows that the moment they begin to justify themselves, they place their fate in the hands of others. For explanation requires acceptance. Better to remain unreadable, letting others waste their strength trying to interpret your motives. In courts and kingdoms, this trait was feared above all. A prince who explained himself was mocked. A prince who remained silent became untouchable, for no one dared challenge what they could not understand. Even allies grew uneasy, for loyalty itself thrives on clarity, and without clarity, loyalty becomes submission. This is the cruel gift of the unexplained. It transforms all who surround you into uncertain followers, hesitant rivals, nervous partners who cling tighter because they cannot define you. Those who never explain radiate a cold confidence, a presence that unsettles others, for it suggests they answer to no one. Enemies will accuse them of crimes, and yet the lack of denial makes those crimes seem at once obvious and unknowable. Was it true? Was it false? The silence becomes more powerful than any defense. Over time, this aura grows. The dangerous personality does not need to convince others of their worth. Others convince themselves, filling the void of silence with their own fear, their own imagination, their own desires. And often, what the mind imagines is far darker than any truth could have been. Machiavelli knew that a ruler who never explained remained beyond judgment, while a ruler who justified every action eventually unraveled under scrutiny. To explain is to beg for approval, and those who beg are already defeated. The most dangerous type understands this and cultivates a discipline of restraint. They know when to speak and when to leave words buried, when to let their silence accuse more loudly than their tongue ever could. To never explain is not arrogance, but a strategy of control. For when you explain nothing, you become answerable to no one. And when you are answerable to no one, you are free and feared. There is a kind of smile that unsettles, more than anger, for it carries no warmth and no humanity. Machiavelli recognized it in the courts of princes, the smile that is neither joy nor kindness but a mask of control. The dangerous personality type wears this cold smile often, for it allows them to witness betrayal, loyalty, cruelty, even death with the same expression. While others are ruled by emotions that shift across their faces, this type remains unreadable, and that unreadability becomes their shield. When they smile in the midst of conflict, it creates doubt in their enemies. Do they know something we do not? Have they already secured victory? Is our resistance already futile? That smile erodes confidence without a word being spoken. In love, it is more devastating. A cold smile can draw you closer because it hints at mystery, at secrets you are desperate to uncover. you lean in, searching for warmth that never appears, and in doing so, you give away your devotion. This personality type weaponizes detachment. They know that humans crave recognition, affirmation, reflection of their feelings, and by refusing to mirror those emotions, they place themselves in control. Your laughter dies when faced with their silence. Your anger feels childish when met with their calm. Your pleading becomes humiliation when met with their fixed expression. Machiavelli wrote that rulers must learn to appear unshaken, for a display of passion made them predictable. The cold smile is the perfect disguise, suggesting composure even when storms rage beneath the surface. Yet the truth is more unsettling. Often there is no storm. This type has trained themselves to detach so completely that victories feel the same as defeats, and loyalty feels the same as betrayal. What matters is not the emotion, but the outcome. They will watch a friend fall with the same calm as they watch an enemy burn, for both moments serve the larger design. It is this detachment that makes them dangerous, because there is nothing you can appeal to. You cannot move them with pity. You cannot sway them with guilt. You cannot lure them with affection. Their cold smile tells you they have already measured what you are worth and decided what to take. History remembers these figures not as tyrants who raged, but as silent presences who unnerved entire courts. They did not need to raise their voices. Their very stillness broke men apart. Machiavelli feared them because they could not be manipulated in return. To face them is to face a mirror that reflects nothing back at you, and in that emptiness you begin to doubt yourself. That doubt is their weapon, and the cold smile is its blade. The most unsettling trait of this personality type is not their silence or their patience, but their ability to mimic the very thing we trust most: empathy. Machiavelli observed that rulers who appeared merciful, compassionate, and humane were far more beloved than those who ruled only through cruelty, yet he warned that appearance alone was enough. True empathy is a weakness because it can cloud judgment, but false empathy is a weapon. The dangerous personality knows how to look into your eyes at the exact moment you crave comfort, nod at the precise beat when you need to be understood, and offer words of kindness that feel like salvation. They will listen as though your pain is their own, and in that moment you believe you have found an ally. But what you do not see is how each confession you make becomes a stone in the foundation of their control. The warmth they project is not real warmth. It is a reflection of yours, mirrored back to make you open the door wider. And the wider the door, the deeper they enter into your trust. This is why Machiavelli feared those who mastered appearances, because the crowd will always follow the one who seems to care, even if that care is nothing but a mask. When this type offers comfort, it is not because they feel your suffering, but because they want to know what you will give in return for relief. They will dry your tears, only to store your weakness for later. They will stand by you in your lowest hour, not out of loyalty, but because they know a person saved in darkness clings with desperate gratitude. That gratitude becomes a leash, binding you to them long after the illusion of kindness has faded. The cruelty of this disguise lies in how deeply it deceives. An enemy who strikes openly can be defended against. An enemy who pretends to be your healer ensures that you will protect them, even love them, while they prepare the wound that will undo you. Machiavelli saw this in politics, where the most dangerous advisors were those who soothed princes with kind words, only to lead them into ruin when it suited their ambition. But he also saw it in ordinary life, where those who seemed the most caring often proved to be the most calculating. To face this personality is to face betrayal not at the hands of your enemy, but at the hands of the one you believed understood you best. That betrayal is deeper than any sword, because it wounds not only your trust in them, but your trust in yourself. And when you can no longer trust your own judgment, you are no longer free. This is the perfect disguise, the mask of empathy, and it is why Machiavelli warned that the kindest face may hide the coldest heart. In every court and kingdom, there were figures more feared than the king himself, though they never wore the crown. Machiavelli studied these shadows in the court, the quiet advisers, the attendants who moved silently through palaces, the confidants who whispered into royal ears. They were rarely noticed by the crowd, yet their influence decided wars, marriages, and executions. The king might command armies, but it was the shadow who often chose when those armies marched and against whom. What made these figures terrifying was not their official power, for many held no title, but their invisible reach. They survived across reigns, serving one master, then another, yet never losing their position. While rulers rose and fell, the shadow remained, guiding the throne no matter who sat upon it. This personality type thrives in proximity to power, without ever appearing to seize it. They advise with humility, they serve with apparent devotion, but their counsel always bends events toward their own advantage. Machiavelli feared them because they could not be removed without suspicion. A king who dismissed a servant seemed cruel. A ruler who ignored a trusted adviser seemed foolish. And so the shadow endured, even when rivals warned against them. Their strength lies in their ability to vanish into the background. When victories come, they allow the ruler to claim them. When failures arrive, they shift blame elsewhere. In this way, they avoid exposure, even as their hand remains behind every decision. History is filled with such figures: ministers who outlived kings, secretaries who carried secrets across generations, queens confidantes whose whispered advice altered the fate of nations. These shadows controlled the flow of information, choosing which truths reached the throne and which were buried in silence. To control what the ruler knows is to control what the ruler does, and that is the essence of their power. The dangerous personality type takes advantage of vanity, for they know rulers crave flattery and trust those who reflect their image back to them. By appearing loyal, the shadow becomes indispensable, and once indispensable, they are untouchable. What makes them most dangerous is their patience. They are content to remain unseen for years because they know influence is more enduring than authority. Authority can be stripped away in an instant, but influence survives even in exile, even in disgrace, because the seeds they have planted continue to grow. Machiavelli taught that princes should beware not only of their enemies, but of those closest to them, for betrayal rarely comes from a distant rival. It comes from the shadow standing at your side, smiling as they hand you the cup, bowing as they place the crown, whispering as they guide your every step until you realize too late that you were never the one ruling at all. The strongest are never broken head-on. Machiavelli knew that the most dangerous personality does not challenge strength with strength, for brute force can be resisted. Instead, they dismantle the mighty piece by piece, eroding confidence, unraveling certainty until the fortress crumbles from within. They begin not with attack, but with suggestion, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the powerful. A word whispered here, a subtle question there, enough to make the strongest pause and wonder if their judgment is truly sound. Once hesitation appears, it grows like a crack in stone. This personality feeds the fracture, never striking directly but pressing at the edges until doubt becomes paralysis. They isolate their target, convincing allies to turn away, convincing followers to question, until the strong man who once stood unshaken finds himself surrounded by silence. Deprived of support, he begins to lean on the very one who orchestrated his downfall, unaware that his dependence only accelerates his collapse. The cruelty of this method is its invisibility. The victim believes he has undone himself, that his missteps are his alone, while in truth each falter was guided. Machiavelli warned that strength makes men blind, for they assume their enemies must be as obvious and as loud as they are. They never consider that the quiet figure at their side might be weaving their ruin patiently, without drawing a single sword. The dangerous personality delights in this slow undoing, for it robs their victim not only of power, but of dignity. To fall in battle is honourable. To fall by one's own hand, twisted by manipulation, is shame that cannot be cleansed. The strongest crumble under this invisible pressure, because their pride forbids them from admitting they are being controlled. They cling to the illusion of mastery even as the ground beneath them disappears. By the time they see the truth, they are already broken, their confidence shattered, their followers dispersed. The predator then steps forward, not as a conqueror but as a saviour, offering support, guidance, perhaps even pity, and the fallen one accepts it, blind to the fact that the very hand lifting him up was the one that cast him down. This is the final cruelty, to not only break the strongest, but to make them grateful for their own defeat. Machiavelli admired this strategy because it required no army, no open conflict, only patience, subtlety, and a deep understanding of human vanity. To shatter the strong without ever striking them is the highest form of power, and it is the art that defines the personality type you should fear most. The most dangerous form of power is not fear nor respect, but dependence. Machiavelli knew that when a person relies upon you for survival, you no longer need to command them, for they will chain themselves willingly. This personality type builds its empire, not with armies or decrees, but with invisible cords of necessity. They make themselves indispensable, the source of comfort, approval, or even identity, until those around them cannot imagine life without their presence. At first, the gesture seems harmless. They offer help when others falter. They provide insight. When confusion reigns, they step forward when no one else will. Gratitude grows quickly, and gratitude ripens into reliance. Soon, decisions that were once made with confidence are delayed until their opinion is given. Strength that once stood on its own begins to waver, waiting for their approval. By the time dependence is complete, the victim has surrendered freedom without realizing it. This trap is so subtle that it feels like love, loyalty, or trust. Yet it is none of those things. It is hunger. And the dangerous personality knows how to feed that hunger just enough to keep it insatiable. When the dependent feels insecure, they soothe them. When they feel ambitious, they encourage them. When they falter, they rescue them. Each act appears noble, but each act deepens the addiction. Machiavelli observed that rulers who allowed their subjects to depend on them could never be overthrown, for the people feared not the ruler's wrath but their absence. Remove the ruler, and life itself seemed to collapse. So too with this personality type. Their greatest weapon is to make others believe they cannot stand without them. The cruelty lies in how dependence can be turned at any moment into chains. Once bound, the victim has no choice but to obey, not because of threats, but because disobedience feels like self-destruction. They will betray their own principles, sacrifice their own freedom, even abandon those they love, simply to preserve the bond. The predator does not need to demand loyalty, for loyalty is given desperately, like air to the drowning. To break free is to face suffocation, and so they remain enslaved by their own fear. This is why Machiavelli admired such power, for it required no violence, no open conflict, only the creation of need. To make another man fear you is to rule him for a day. To make him depend on you is to rule him for life. The dangerous personality type understands this truth, and it is why they are so feared. They do not conquer by force, but by weaving themselves into the very fabric of your existence, until cutting them out feels like tearing out your own heart. Machiavelli lived in a world where trust was fatal and power was always contested, and he knew well the type of personality that could not be ignored. He feared them, yet he also admired them, for they embodied the very qualities he believed essential to survival. These were the silent allies, the ones who could never be ruled but could be courted, the ones who seemed to serve while in truth they were always positioning themselves above the game. To rulers, such people were invaluable because they could achieve what no army could: influence without rebellion, obedience without chains, control without appearing to grasp it. Yet, Machiavelli also warned that to place yourself in their hands was to place yourself in danger, because the same silence that made them effective also made them unpredictable. They might support you when it served them, but when the winds shifted, their loyalty dissolved like smoke. Their presence was both a gift and a curse. They could save a kingdom from collapse one day and orchestrate its ruin the next, and you would never know until it was too late. Machiavelli admired their discipline, their patience, their refusal to reveal themselves. He recognized in them the qualities of the fox, able to sense traps and avoid them, and the lion, able to inspire fear without lifting a claw. To ally with such a person was to borrow their cunning, but also to risk being devoured by it. What terrified Machiavelli most was that they did not crave recognition. A man who wants glory can be predicted, manipulated, even bought. But a man who wants nothing visible cannot be controlled. His motives remain hidden, his true desires invisible, and so he walks untouchable. This is why Machiavelli called for princes to be cautious with those who seem too loyal, too silent, too competent, for beneath their calm surface lay ambitions that could outlast any throne. Yet, in his own writings, he revealed his envy of them, for they were freer than rulers, safer than generals, and more feared than tyrants. They moved through courts like shadows, collecting allegiance without demanding it, shaping history without signing their name to it. To call them ally was necessary, but to forget their nature was deadly. In the end, Machiavelli knew that the silent ally was both the greatest treasure and the greatest threat a ruler could possess. He did not write about them to flatter, but to warn. Never mistake their silence for loyalty, nor their smile for obedience. They will serve you only so long as you serve their hidden design, and when that design no longer includes you, even kings will find themselves abandoned, broken, or replaced. The final truth is that this personality type is not rare, nor locked away in the halls of power, nor confined to the chronicles of history. They walk among us every day, hidden in plain sight, disguised as friends, colleagues, lovers, and even family. They are not always cruel in appearance, nor do they always bear malice on their face. That is what makes them so dangerous. You expect danger to announce itself, to come with a threat, a raised voice, a sharpened blade. But Machiavelli knew that the kind you should fear most is the kind that never announces itself at all. They blend in, moving silently, always watching, always waiting, always measuring the smallest cracks in your armor. You will recognize them not by their power, but by the unease they leave behind. A smile that lingers too long, a silence that demands you fill it, a favor that feels heavier than it should. These are the signs. They study you the way a predator studies its prey, not out of hatred, but out of discipline. They do not waste time on emotion, because emotion clouds judgment. They want outcomes, and they will shape you into the outcome they desire. You may believe yourself safe because you are ordinary, because you do not sit on a throne, because you hold no army in your hands. Yet power is not only crowns and kingdoms. It is influence, money, loyalty, reputation, opportunity, and this personality feeds on all of them. If you possess any of these, they will know it before you do, and they will move to make it theirs. What unsettled Machiavelli was not only that they existed, but that most people welcomed them eagerly, mistaking their calm for kindness, their detachment for wisdom, their manipulation for care. And once welcomed, they are nearly impossible to remove, because by the time you suspect them, you have already built your life around their presence. They are the advisor who knows your secrets, the lover who knows your weaknesses, the partner who knows your dreams. And to remove them would feel like tearing out a piece of yourself. This is why Machiavelli urged caution. It is not enough to rule over enemies. One must learn to see the hidden enemy who wears the mask of ally. The personality you should fear is not the loud tyrant or the reckless fool. It is the quiet shadow who never needs to shout, who never needs to demand, who wins not by force, but by patience, silence, and control. If you cannot become them, then at least learn to recognize them. For to serve such a person blindly is to offer your freedom willingly, and once given, it will never be returned. If you want more truths that strip away illusions and expose the hidden laws of power, subscribe to Dark Blue Psychology. Leave a comment with the personality type you fear most, and remember, silence is often the sharpest weapon. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because the next lesson may be the one your rivals never want you to hear.